Hi, good morning. Happy Saturday. Hope you're enjoying your morning so far. Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. When we come back, we're going to be looking at a couple of things today: immigration and the recent poll that suggests the Liberals are just catching up. We'll be right back. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please subscribe to this station if you haven't already, and you might need to resubscribe. We lose a lot of folks every week because YouTube just deletes them. And thank you for watching today, and like the station if you can right now, and tell your friends and family that this station is out here. I think we give some analysis that is, rather good at times, if I do say so myself. We'll be coming back with this story in a minute. This is a huge development. Ottawa planning a processing center for asylum seekers in Quebec near the U.S. border. Where have we seen this one before? Remember 2017, 2018, 2019, Roxham Road, when hundreds of thousands streamed across the border. Now, this is obviously going to be happening again as a result of the mass deportations in the States. We'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to talk about something else before we got there, because it's been a concern for a lot of folks on this station. And that's this recent poll. I mean, look at this poll. This is apparently Liberals are over 30 percentage points now. Just over 30 percentage points. And this, of course, just weeks after, or just days after another poll said they were 26. Let's have a look at that. Here's the Advocates poll. Just a couple of days difference. 26. Conservatives lead by 26 points in the Advocates poll. The ECUS poll, they're at 31.7% against 38. Only 7 percentage points behind. Can this be true? Well, I tell you why I say it's not true. And the reason is I don't trust ECOS polling because of its globalist, and I would argue very woke founder and president, Frank Graves, who is a great friend of Liberals and is a huge enemy of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, or any small c Conservative, really an enemy of the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier, cannot stand anything that disagrees with his worldview. But I tell you the clue to knowing why this poll is skewed. I don't know if the Liberals bought this poll. I think they would have indicated that that's only ethical. If the Liberals had bought this poll, they would have indicated it. This is a legitimate polling company. I think they have their biases, and I think they make their biases very clear. So you have to take their product with that in mind. But I don't expect everybody to try to read this. I'll read the most pertinent part here. This explains. You have to read literally the fine print of this poll to discover exactly why you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because it literally breathes. Well, no, not literally. It literally mirrors liberal talking points. I'm not saying that right. But here it is. The Liberal resurgence seems to be driven by three factors. First, Justin Trudeau's resignation produced a modest but noticeable boost to the party's standing. Actually, it didn't. From all other polls indicate no. Second, the extensive media coverage of the Liberal leadership race accelerated this rise. This extensive media coverage has been appallingly bad. You watched it with me. Mark Carney's opening day in Edmonton was a catastrophe. His speech was awful. It was a complete disaster. How about Chrystia Freeland's announcement in Toronto about a week ago now? A week ago today. That was another disaster. She was interrupted at least 5 times, some say 13. She was by protesters who had to be physically dragged out of the auditorium, interrupting her speech. Her speech was terrible. Her cadence was 2 words, take a deep breath. 2 words, take a deep breath. She did not get much of a message across. So the extensive media coverage has all been horrible. But ECO says finally the cavalcade of radical announcement from the freshly inaugurated Donald Trump has spurred a renewed sense of national identity. Ah, that's the key. There's the liberal bias. Donald Trump evil. All of the things Donald Trump has announced since his inauguration, bad. Canadians don't like that. Canadians, therefore, are going to support the Liberals because, the Liberals represent national identity, prompting Canadians to rally around their incumbent leaders in a show of solidarity. That's exactly what I've been telling you the Liberals are doing right now, pretending to be the party of Canada again. Everybody rally around the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau because we all hate Donald Trump. That's the Liberal strategy. Everybody gather around and oppose Donald Trump, and the Liberal Party reaps the dividends. Canadians are not that stupid. That's what the Liberal Party wants you to believe. That's what the Liberal Party wants you to do. And that's what ECO says is happening. I find that highly suspicious. Both major Liberal leadership hopefuls, Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, have taken definitive stances against any potential tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Here's the anti-Poilievre view. In contrast, Pierre Poilievre's reaction has been somewhat more muted, as he has the unenviable task of reconciling the diverging positions of other conservatives, particularly Doug Ford and Daniel Smith. Instead, Mr. Poilievre's focus has been on the carbon tax and Mr. Trudeau, which may no longer be the salient issues. His framing of the election may need to pivot, and the results so far are not working in the Conservative Party's favor. All right. Enough said about that. What the fine print in this ECOS poll says is all Liberal talking points. That's precisely what they're up to here. Another reason I don't trust ECOS? Here's another ECOS poll I wrote a story on for the Post Millennial. It's back in October. 95% of Canadians planning to vote Conservative, and that means either for the Conservative Party of Canada or the People's Party of Canada, accused of being disinformed on economy, climate change, right to bear arms, and COVID vaccines. Now, if you read this article, I encourage you to do that, you'll find out how Frank Graves defines disinformation. It's anything he disagrees with, essentially, if you read this. So if you're opposed to certain policies, they're immediately as a result of your being susceptible to disinformation. And so if you didn't answer the right way, if you didn't answer according to ECO's worldview, ECO's vision of how you should respond, you're in trouble, and you are susceptible to disinformation. This is what ECOS has done in the past. Is there a bias here? Of course there is. And this bias has been evident if you go over ECOS polling for the last 3 months. The Liberals have always scored much higher. I think this last poll is completely off. So, back to our main story today, which is immigration. Are the illegal immigrants coming north? You bet they are, because the deportations have started in the States. Now, right now, let's have a look at this story. Right now, they're targeted. And people say, oh, it's just the criminals. That's how it's going to start.
Military deportation flights are the most visible sign of Donald Trump's hard turn on immigration. Up to 80 Guatemalan migrants were removed from the U.S. by Air Force transport Thursday. Though similar flights happened regularly under President Joe Biden, Trump's decision to use military aircraft is new, part of a strategy that will also see thousands of troops deployed to the border. In Juarez, Mexico, dozens of Mexican migrants were also returned from the U.S. Everyone is getting caught. I don't recommend to cross, says this man.
We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get, as bad as anybody you've seen. We're taking them out first.
It's not clear what specific crimes the first Trump-era deportees committed. In Boston, immigration enforcement raids unfolded in a residential neighborhood. In Newark, New Jersey, a raid on a business swept up 3 undocumented workers. Several U.S. citizens
Undocumented? Do we mean illegal?
were also briefly detained by ICE authorities.
None of these people were rapists or murderers or criminals. The problem with it is that ICE went in there without a warrant.
Despite all the bluster, the pace of deportations is so far on par with what unfolded during the Biden years. Trump has promised to go further. Mass detention camps and sweeping raids are expected in the coming weeks.
ICE has overreached beyond what should be constitutionally allowed.
Protest as they might, local officials have little power to
Notice it's what should be constitutionally allowed, not what is constitutionally allowed. That's how the woke left always describes the situation.
stop what's coming, leaving immigrant communities to fear their American dream may become a nightmare.
Oh, you want an American dream? Get in line and emigrate illegally. Sorry. We've had 4 years of this nonsense. Tens of millions of illegal immigrants getting into the United States. And Donald Trump is saying that there's an end. But once Tom Homan, the border czar, made it quite clear during the transition phase, when it was President-elect Donald Trump, that the deportations would begin with security risks and criminals. Terrorists, national security risks, criminals. People, they would be the first to go. It would be targeted. Then the mass deportations would begin. So that's what's coming. Now, how does Jagmeet Singh, he said this the other day, hope nobody would notice. But Jagmeet Singh wants transgender people to be included as refugees because Donald Trump had the common sense to say the United States government only recognizes 2 sexes, and so should the Canadian government. There are only 2. And you're not in danger just because your government doesn't recognize your desire to want to be something else, to pretend to be something else, to dress up like something else. You're not going to go to jail for that. No one's going to arrest you for that. Nobody's going to come around and taunt you for that. You've always had that right, except the official policy is there's only 2 sexes or genders.
Should Canada amend?
I'll give the mic one and then I'll give you a follow.
Should Canada amend the Safe Third Country Agreement for trans Americans who come to our borders seeking refuge?
On that note, I think it's really sad for the folks in the States right now that heard the president basically say that they don't exist or that their reality or their identity is no longer recognized. It's really scary for a lot of folks. And I just want to acknowledge how scary that must be for people who heard that, who now feel really alone, who feel really afraid. I think what Canada's always done is shown as a country that we are there for people when they're in their times of need. That's something that's been a point of pride of Canada. So looking at the third country, that agreement and how we can amend it, it's been something that we've been considering for a while. We've raised concerns about the agreement for a while, and so it's something we'll look at.
The answer is yes. Something we'll look at. Yes, he agrees with that. And while we're on Jagmeet Singh, by the way, he let the cat out of the bag again. That he's prepared to vote against the government when the House resumes sitting. Said it again. Let's listen to him.
You criticized the Prime Minister's decision to prorogue Parliament amid the Trump threats. Is there not a value in kind of waiting until Parliament is back sitting and using that time in Parliament to be able to scrutinize government and handle that with unity, like you said? Why do you need to go to an election immediately at the first?
Don't you love this liberal reporter? I don't know who it is. But here's a reporter saying, how dare you even suggest we bring down the Trudeau government right now? Let's keep them in power for as long as possible. Even though Donald Trump says, I can't work with you. I can't work with the Liberal government. I can't work with Justin Trudeau. I refuse to do it. Have elections. Get a new government. Get a legitimate government that I can deal with. That's what Donald Trump is saying. And of course, the media corps in Canada still don't get it. That Trudeau's illegitimate. We need new elections now if we're going to beat this terror.
Opportunity.
I think it's been really clear that the Liberals have let down people. People tell me they've been let down by them. They chose to prorogue government. They could have been sitting. We could have been passing laws that would protect workers, that would get us ready for this trade war. They chose not to. So people who tell me they feel let down by the Liberals, I understand that. And now we've got a choice in this next election. It's going to be between Conservatives want to cut, and it's going to cost you, or New Democrats who want to make life more affordable. So if you reject Conservative cuts in Pierre Poilievre, I invite you to stand with me. Stand with me this time, and we can fight together and we can win.
But
He said it. He's going to oppose the Trudeau government when they get back, whenever that is. That could be as early as February 14th or 15th, as we've discussed on this station in the past, because of the constitutional challenge, the Supreme Court challenge to prorogation. Very, very possible. Now, Mark Miller has made some interesting comments. Once again, he went crazy because Pierre Poilievre suggested that Canada's policy about transgenderism, about sex, should be the same. That we recognize two sexes. And this sent Mark Miller. Remember Mark Miller? He's the guy at the back of the class we all had in high school, constantly putting his hand up, trying to answer the question, but he never had the right answer. That's Mark Miller. And here he is talking about border security.
After his announcement in Fredericton, Pierre Poilievre spoke to Global News about his policy around gender identity. Poilievre has said that he's only aware of two genders.
My policies on this have been very clear. No men in women's prisons, sports, or bathrooms. And we believe that it's inappropriate for dudes to be in women's prisons, in women's sports, and in women's bathrooms.
The statement came in response to President Trump's executive order, only recognizing males and females in the United States. He says he would implement a similar policy here in Canada if he becomes Prime Minister. Poilievre didn't provide any further details about the proposed policy, but did say it would take effect immediately after he took office.
Pierre Poilievre, again, is being a jackass with his whole weaponization of the gender debate. He said he only recognizes two genders. I've only ever seen him really recognize one or spend most of his time on one gender, so at least that's a step up. But again, he...
All right, what the hell does that mean, Mark? You know, you are such a smartass with a vacuous mentality. What are you saying? That you're not weaponizing this debate by putting men into women's prisons, men into women's change rooms? You're the one weaponizing this debate. Pierre Poilievre is saying, let's get back to common sense. Let's get back to something everybody understands.
He has to be stopping a jackass on gender issues. It's just stupid.
No, what you're saying is stupid. It doesn't get any more stupid. So Mark Miller continued saying stupid things. Here he is with CTV's Vasikopoulos. And he's talking about how prorogation is perfectly justified, even though they can't pass any bills, including the money that they've set aside to fight border insecurity. And we'll get to those numbers in a second again. But listen to how he just doesn't. I mean, and he looks like he's about to be shot in this interview, by the way. I find this fascinating. Mark Miller is usually a cocky, SOB, who's always looking like he's just dismissive of everybody. It sounds like half of the people in the Liberal caucus, actually. But he's always looking like, don't even bother asking me because, you're just so insignificant. I'm a minister. I look after things. I'm the boss. But he looks like he's headed for a firing squad here.
I guess putting the Tories aside for a second, though, if these tariffs, as the president said last night, are levied on February the 1st and Parliament is not sitting, I looked through your initial announcement in December. You lay out a couple of different cases where there are new legislative requirements. It's $1 billion of new money. I would imagine that would need to be voted on. Again, putting aside the Tories' criticism and just speaking to Canadians who would expect you to move forward as fast as possible on something that could exempt us from the application of these tariffs, does it actually make sense? Is it actually strengthening democracy not to have Parliament in session?
Well, there's an ability of the Government of Canada with a large balance sheet to cash manage these things. Actually, one of the considerations in proroguing was the fact that they have another financial year coming up on April 1st. So the period of prorogation is a reasonable time, the next 6 weeks, and any eventuality we can certainly cash manage for. But parliamentarians, as they should, as is demanded by our Constitution, will have the opportunity to vote on financial matters at the end of March, and they can vote for security. They can vote for...
No, they can't cash manage, Mark. You are not telling the truth. This requires new money, which you don't have right now. This is why prorogation has to end at the very minimum at the end of March, so Parliament can vote on some money bills. But this guy is just incredible, and you can tell. You can tell by his demeanor that he knows he's not telling you the truth.
Border money, or they can vote against it, and we can go into an election, but that'll be the choice of parliamentarians. And in a minority, that is what we are subject to.
Yeah. And of course, she does ask him the next question. It's painful. She says, should we accept transgender people as refugees? Mark freezes up because he knows he can't really answer that question. So he doesn't answer the question. He doesn't. But what's Mark talking about $1 billion here? I showed you this yesterday. I'm going to show it to you again. Here's the border security from the Fall Economic Summit under safety, security, and fair governance. Look at all these categories. Securing our borders. There's the $1.3 billion that the Liberal government likes to tout as their answer to Donald Trump's demand that we tighten up border security. There it is, $1.302 billion after 6 years. In the current fiscal year, $81 million. That's not enough. And in fact, it won't be enough until well into the 4th or 5th year of this. That's when they really start spending the money. Not much in the next fiscal year either. And look at the other categories here that's somehow making safer, healthier communities. Taking the gun grab, that's getting $541 million next year versus $144 million for border security. The Trudeau government spending more on taking guns away from Canadian citizens than it is on border security. So that's how serious they are about border security. They're spending money on protecting women's reproductive health. That means more abortion clinics. Supporting women's organizations. Why do they need to support women's organizations? Women just do fine supporting their organizations. Establishing Canada's Black Justice Strategy. What on earth is that? What is a Black Justice Strategy? A special justice strategy for people of color? That is insane. There should be one justice system, just one justice strategy. Obviously, the Liberals are admitting we have more than two-tier justice in this country. Strengthening the Black entrepreneurship program. We don't need entrepreneurship programs for people of varying skin color. And supporting Black community organizations. This is all about security in this country, according to the Liberal government. I showed that slide to you yesterday, but I can't show it to you enough because it's incredible. All right, we've got some fun stuff to show you here. I've been holding on this. Freeland, of course, and here's the reason the Liberals are supposedly only 7 points behind the Conservatives now, because of people like Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland can barely hold it together. And Freeland now is saying we need the grassroots in the Liberal Party suddenly.
I am so grateful to the colleagues who have been supporting me. I want to highlight, I'm especially grateful to the people who bring the caucus together, do the hard work in our caucus, the workhorses of our caucus. I'm really glad to have the support of the current Ontario caucus chair, Michael Coteau, the former Ontario caucus chair, Jamie Maloney, the Quebec caucus chair, Stéphane Lauzon, the chair of Women's Caucus, Leah Taylor-Roy. And for me, a huge emphasis is going to be reviving the party, reviving the grassroots of the party, reviving a real democratization process in the party. We can never again be in a position where the leader is the only person who decides who the leader is. And I think Liberal Party grassroots members and caucus need to have a greater say in what we do and how we do it.
Oh, isn't that touching? Now, Chrystia Freeland is now all for the grassroots. Hasn't been for 9 years now, or 10 years, but now she is. Now, here's a nice, funny story. Not quite ending with this, but this is funny. Justin Trudeau has started his retaliatory tariff war. Well, not quite, but he's targeting Heinz Ketchup. Heinz Ketchup, he says it's American, and they're going to fix Heinz Ketchup. Funny thing is, there's a Heinz Ketchup plant in his very riding using locally grown tomatoes. Justin Trudeau doesn't even know that. This is wonderful. Let's watch this.
To respond with equivalent, Canada needs to respond with equivalent tariffs on imports from the United States. Those would be paid by Canadian consumers. That's why we will look, as we have in the past, at things that have replacements. The example from last time was Heinz's ketchup being replaced by French's ketchup.
So that's the example from last time. And the problem is, of course, Heinz Ketchup has come back and said, hold it, Justin. You got a Heinz Ketchup plant in your backyard producing ketchup. Here's their news release. Kraft Heinz Canada is deeply disappointed that Prime Minister Trudeau has made misleading statements that Heinz Ketchup is not made in Canada and that it may be a potential target for countervailing tariffs. More than 100,000 hardworking Canadians at our Mount Royal, Quebec facility, together with our many suppliers in the province, produce Heinz Ketchup for Canadians using tomatoes grown in Leamington, Ontario. As one of the largest manufacturers of food in the country, Kraft Heinz is also the largest purchaser of tomatoes in Ontario. Heinz might have a libel suit here against Justin Trudeau for falsely accusing them of being a U.S. company that doesn't contribute to Canadian jobs, that doesn't have
with
Canadian
tariffs
in this country
on imports from the United States.
Here's some more.
Those would be paid by Canadian consumers. That's why we will look, as we have in the past, at things that have replacements. The example from last time was Heinz's ketchup being replaced by French's ketchup.
So there's the ketchup wars. He's going full blast. And here, Justin Trudeau. Oh, let's go back to there.
Ketchup.
You can't make this level of stupidity up, folks. Kirk Lubimoff. Justin Trudeau just got fact-checked by Heinz Ketchup, which he used the tariff as an example. That their ketchup is in fact made in Canada by Canadians. But it gets worse. Not only Heinz ketchup is made in Canada, but it's literally made 10 minutes and 2 turns away from Justin Trudeau's constituency office. Right? 10 minutes away. This country is run by idiots. And here's a map. There it is. And there's the Heinz ketchup statement. And this could be Heinz's way of retaliating. Who knows? It could be an F Trudeau app out there coming from Heinz because he falsely accused them of not hiring Canadians to make ketchup that is made in Canada. And it's literally the plant, the factory is 10 minutes away from his constituency office. It's a classic moment in Canadian insanity. That is beautiful. I want to end with this. This is beautiful too. This is another one of Donald Trump's executive orders.
Answer as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Next, we have a set of pardons for peaceful pro-life protesters who were prosecuted by the Biden administration for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Do you know how many?
I believe it's 23, sir.
23 people were prosecuted. They should not have been prosecuted. Many of them are elderly people. They should not have been prosecuted. This is a great honor to sign this.
Yeah, that's marvelous. That is marvelous. Now to recap here, a lot of folks been asking about, well, some folks been asking, so what's the problem with the border? Is it north or is it south? It's both. The border is porous. It's not well regulated. It's not well guarded. So illegals are coming up from the south and lots more are coming this week and next and the coming months. Illegals are entering into the states from the north. And that's what Donald Trump is most concerned about. And that problem persists. Yes, as Maggie May says, we have a problem now and have for 9 years at Roxham Road. People just walking across the border. And on the other hand, we got people walking into the United States. Now, Justin Trudeau says, hey, they're not all carrying cocaine or fentanyl. No, they're not. It's only 1%. Well, it's actually a little higher. But it's the number of terrorists coming from the north to the south. That is what drives Donald Trump crazy. So it's a north-south problem for Canada. We don't have security for people entering from the U.S. We don't have security for people leaving Canada and entering the U.S. illegally. So that is the issue here. And this is not going to be solved unless this government gets serious. It's got a $1.3 billion plan that's 6 years in the making. Not good enough. That's what we have to keep driving home. And Pierre Paul, this is a difficult situation for Pierre Poilievre. He's got to say that, look, this is we are Canada first. I need to negotiate with Donald Trump. Right now, it's only Danielle Smith who's really negotiating for Canada. She's not just negotiating for Alberta, she's negotiating for Canada. Nobody on the Trudeau team is even talking to the Trump team. It's a disaster. And what we need is Poilievre has to become extremely visible in this process right now. He needs to lead the process, not to be co-opted by people like Doug Ford, who is in Trudeau's pocket, or Trudeau himself, or whomever might replace Justin Trudeau in the near future. Pierre Poilievre cannot be co-opted by the Liberals. He needs to lead. He needs to be the Prime Minister in waiting, and we need elections fast so we can get through this with a legitimate leader. Justin Trudeau is not that man. Mark Carney's not that man. Chrystia Freeland's not that woman. We need new elections in this country. So that's going to be it for today, folks. Little reminder at the end. Yeah. And a little reminder, if you're downtown Ottawa today, join up with the Freedom Convoy folks who are commemorating the 3rd anniversary of the beginning of the Freedom Convoy from 2022. Those are heady days. Thanks for watching today, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know. And until then,